Alright, welcome back to the third edition of CFCI Game Day. And we're here in the first official college football semifinal at the Rose Bowl between Oregon and Florida State. I'm Sam along with David and Dizzy Izzy alongside. And we have results, predictions, and more. So let's get started. There are many good games so far in this past bowl season. So which surprises stood out to you, Dizzy Izzy?
The biggest surprise to me was Virginia Tech over Cincy by 16 in a tough battle.
Yep. I'd say the blowout of TCU over Ole Miss was the biggest surprise, 42-3, after Bo Wallace not having a great game, and Trayvon Morgan not having a great game as well, but better than Bo Wallace.
Bo Wallace not having a great game, huge understatement. My biggest surprise was Western Kentucky over Central Michigan. Not because they won, or Central Michigan lost. It was 49-48. Keep in mind it was 49-14 going into the fourth quarter. Central Michigan came back with 34 unanswered points, and they came in within 1 point. All they had to do was kick the extra point and send it into overtime. But they elected to go for two. They didn't make it. The game was over. That was a surprise for me. That was the heartbreak bowl for me. I was up and down.
Western Kentucky 2-0 on 2-point conversions this year towards the end of the game. Won against Marshall, which they went for and got to beat Marshall, give Marshall their only loss of the season. And then against Central Michigan, where they ended up winning their bowl game. Then I would say a second surprise was the Clemson blowout over Oklahoma that I don't think anyone saw coming. Okay, and what about your favorite games, Dizzy Izzy?
My favorite game was Boise State over Arizona, and it was an overall shootout.
Very indeed, and especially with Coach Richrod calling that very debatable play towards the end. What about you?
I'm not a big fan of the blowouts. For example, the TCU game, by 5 minutes into the third quarter, I felt wrong for watching. I mean, it was they were failing in every aspect of the game. TCU was just dominating. I love the close games. I love the close games, and I got some perfect ones for you. Bowling Green over South Alabama, 33-28. That was a great game. South Carolina over Miami, 24-21. Great game. Navy over San Diego State, 17-16, when San Diego State had missed a field goal that would have been the difference in the game. Those are my favorite games, the close ones.
And adding on to when you were talking about TCU, when we were watching that game, and you told me, like, about halfway through the third quarter, it was hard for you to watch. And I want to say it was probably harder for the committee to watch that game, saying that since they dropped from 3 to 6. And on the CFCI, TCU was actually third in ours, and they would have played to Alabama. That probably would have been a good game. And also, Oregon and Florida State still would have played, Florida State being 1 and Oregon being 4. I would say my favorite game was the USC versus Nebraska game. It was really, it was also a shootout. A lot of probably missed calls, especially there towards the end with the pass interference. But overall, I think you could never really tell who had the momentum, because one team would gain the momentum, then the other team would just take it right back. What about you, Dizzy Izzy?
I would like to add on to the USC versus Nebraska game. It was just a back and forth game, and I liked it.
Yep. And also, I would say that Arizona State and Duke was also a very good game, with Duke having a very good last 2 drives, but then a heartbreak interception there right at the end. But yeah, so we'll be back after this small break. We're back, and now we'll do some previews. Gary Anderson has left for Oregon State. The Badgers will play Auburn. So how do you think that they will do without their coach?
Well, their coach up and left them high and dry. But they do have an AD who's taking his place for this bowl game by the name of Barry Alvarez from Northeast High School in Lincoln, Nebraska, I might add. After that whole Ohio State debacle in the Big Ten Championship, Wisconsin, they have some motivation, okay? Auburn, speaking of motivation, won the SEC championship last year, got to the national championship. This was not the encore season they were looking for. So there's plenty of motivation there. So there's a ton of motivation on both sides of the ball.
The key to this game is if Auburn can start hot and finish hot, and how good Melvin Gordon is.
Yeah, because Melvin Gordon cannot get anything done against Ohio State, and that 59-0. The Cotton Bowl will have a magnificent matchup between Michigan State and Baylor. What do you look forward to seeing?
That offense against that defense. Baylor's offense against Michigan State's defense. Now, Michigan State lost to Oregon and Ohio State, and they truly believe they still deserve to be a part of that conversation of one of the best teams in the country. But Baylor has a chip on their shoulder. They feel disrespected. Disrespected by the Big 12, by Bob Bowlesley, by the committee, by TCU, and I think Wisconsin's going to try and knock that chip off their shoulder. Michigan State. But here's the thing. A lot of people that wear a chip on their shoulder wear their heart on their sleeve. So if they're going to try and knock that chip off the shoulder, that arm's going to get going. They're going to get punched in the mouth. That's what I think.
Baylor may only have one loss, but Michigan State may be the toughest challenge they've had all year.
Played TCU when they started to get hot. They played a good West Virginia team. I also agree. Missouri is looking to bounce back after their SEC championship loss to Alabama, and they play the Gophers. How do you think this game will go?
Well, let me tell you something about Missouri. Missouri's won the SEC East each of the past 2 years. They won their bowl game last year versus Oklahoma State, if I remember right. But yet they still get no respect. And rightfully so. Minnesota has been riding David Cobb, their running back, all year long. He's going to have a good game.
Iowa may separate these two geographically, but on the field, these teams are both statistically about the same. It'll be a pretty good game.
I like the big words. Big words for a small girl. Florida State has won 29 straight games and is looking for 30 against Oregon in the first ever playoff semifinal. How great will this game be?
Oh, it'll be a great game. It's going to be a great game. These two teams match up perfectly together. However, Oregon's cornerback, Ifo Olamu, he's out. And he's one of the number one cornerbacks in the entire FBS. And also the O-line is a little bit banged up. But they still have a healthy Mariota, which is a good thing because I think he's going to be running for his life. Now, for Florida State, it comes down to Jameis Winston. And can he protect the ball?
We have last year's Heisman winner versus this year's Heisman winner. The key will be which Heisman quarterback can do more.
We've seen Florida State down the stretch can be clutch. Let's see if they can get one more clutch game before their first loss in the past few years. Ohio State got the final spot over TCU and Baylor and plays Alabama promptly after the first semifinal game for the second semifinal game. What are good matchups to watch in this game?
Two really come to mind. Amari Cooper versus the cornerbacks. Do they have defensively a scheme to slow him down, stop him, keep him from being that deep threat and breaking tackles and making big plays? The other main thing that I'm looking for is good old Cardell Jones, a third-string quarterback, mind you, and how good is he going to be against that Alabama defense? Those are the two main things I want to see.
With JT Barrett out, Cardell Jones in. These guys play so similar, it's like Barrett never left.
Very true. On Friday, we have a top 15 matchup between Kansas State and UCLA. How could this play out?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Kansas State does not want to end their season with 2 consecutive losses. So they're going to come out firing. But UCLA is looking for their third 10-win season in school history. So keeping in mind UCLA only has 6 scholarship seniors.
Kansas State only has 3 losers, and all of those three teams are in the top 10 and made those games pretty good, so they can compete.
Yep. And UCLA having 2 kind of iffy losses this year. But we will be back after some brief commercials. We're back, and now we'll start with our players to watch. David started off.
My first player to watch this bowl week, Auburn quarterback Nick Marshall. I think he's going to go just off the record books. I look for at least 4 touchdowns from him.
Baylor quarterback Bryce Petty will have to have the best game of his career, so that is why he's one of my players to watch.
Cardale Jones may be a third-string quarterback, but he doesn't play like one. I expect him to throw for over 300 yards and rush for another 100, with at least 4 total touchdowns and a tight battle between Alabama.
Alabama wide receiver Amari Cooper. He's going to have over 200 yards receiving. Just watch it.
UCLA quarterback had Heisman hopes at the beginning of the season, but slowly faded out throughout the season. But if he has a good game, he could lead the Bruins to a victory.
Melvin Gordon is some 300 yards short of the season rushing record. I don't expect him to get the record, but I expect at least a 150-yard performance in his game against Auburn.
My last pick, I'm going to go with Jameis Winston as a player to watch. If you look back and do a slow motion of when Mariota was introduced as the Heisman, you got a little roll of the eyes from Jameis Winston. He's going to come out and try and prove something. I expect him to throw for more than 450 yards in this game.
Florida defensive lineman Dante Fowler Jr. has had a great year, averaging 4.5 tackles a game and a season high of 11 against LSU. If he could plug holes and make tackles, he could lead the Gators over ECU.
Speaking of Marcus Mariota, he is my third player to watch. He's the Heisman winner. And he's facing the previous Heisman winner, Jameis Winston. And he's a huge contributor to Oregon's success this year and even last year. And possibly the year before, you could debate. And I expect him to throw for over 400 yards and rush for at least another 100. And this highest scoring battle between Florida State. Now onto our picks, starting with the Outback Bowl between Auburn and Wisconsin.
It's going to be a good game. Wisconsin has something to prove. Melv Gordon has something to prove. When it comes down to it, he is Marshall. He is Marshall. Nick Marshall. Difference of the game.
I'm choosing Auburn because them Tigers are going to eat them Badgers.
I think Auburn's going to win by 7. The Cotton Bowl has a top 10 battle between Michigan State and Baylor. Dizzy Izzy, who do you have winning this game?
I'm choosing Michigan State because I don't like Texas. Oh my gosh.
Like the dad said to his daughter at 1 a.m. when he caught her sneaking at the window, not so fast! Baylor is going to have the offense that Michigan State cannot stop. Thank you very much.
Well, you know what? I'm going to pull a Lee Corso on you. Not so fast! I think Michigan State is going to come explosive, and I think they're going to have a good game and win by 10. Missouri and Minnesota play in the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. Who do you have? Who do you have?
Just like Auburn versus Wisconsin, those Tigers gonna eat them Gophers.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. Missouri quarterback Matty Mock. Sometimes inconsistent, but he's a gunslinger. Reminds me of some guy named Brett Favre.
Favre?
Favre.
I also have Mizzou.
My John Madden impersonation. That's all I got.
Mizzou by 13. On Friday, we have a quadruple header starting with Houston against Pitt in the Armed Forces Bowl.
Cougars, because that was the same mascot for my elementary school. So I have to go with that.
Well, like Jeff Gordon said to Brad Keselowski, not so fast! Pitt is going to win this game. Running back James Conner broke Tony Dorsett's single-season record. He's a Hall of Famer. Bye-bye.
I think Pitt's going to win by 6.
Bye.
Then we have Iowa and Tennessee in the Tax Slayer Bowl.
Tennessee, because I have family in Iowa.
Ooh.
You know, if you see a spider on the ground and you smush it with your shoe, that's a good pick. I tell you what about Tennessee. Their defensive ends is 13th in the nation with 10 sacks and 3rd in the nation with 20.5 tackles for losses. There you go.
I also have Tennessee, but I have them winning by 10. Also, we have the Alamo Bowl between Kansas State and UCLA. How do you see this coming out?
Wildcats, get your head in the game! I love High School Musical.
So she's taking Kansas State.
Well, like my college chess coach once said to me, not so fast. In this game, I have only 2 words for you. Brett Hundley.
Okay. Whatever. I got Kansas State by 10, and Kansas State will win, just so you know. Then we have the Cactus Bowl between Washington and Oklahoma State.
Washington, because Huskies are just so cute, and Cowboys, no.
Oh.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you for taking a shower before today's show. That was a good pick. Washington, 0-5 versus ranked opponent, 8-0 versus unranked opponents. Oklahoma State's not ranked.
I also think Washington will blow out OK State by 17. On Saturday, ECU and Florida play in the Birmingham Bowl. Who do you have winning?
Well, remember in Peter Pan when the gator almost eats Captain Hook?
Yeah.
Well, he's gonna get his revenge someday, and that day is gonna be at the game. That's why the Pirates are gonna win.
Like the mama snail said to her kids running up and down the hallway, not so fast. I like Florida in this game. Florida beat Georgia for the first time since 2010 this year. They're going to ride that momentum.
I think ECU is going to win in a very tough battle, only by 7 though. On Sunday, the Toledo and Arkansas State play in the GoDaddy Bowl. Who do you have winning?
Rockets, because that's gonna be my mascot when I get into high school.
Like sharing the link to your friends of this show, that's a good pick. That's a good pick right there. I like Toledo as well. They're 1-3 in non-conference game, 7-1 in the MAC. They want this big win, like a man wants a kiss after the first date.
I also have Toledo, and I think they'll win by 14. Now on to the semifinals. Alabama takes on Ohio State, and who do you think wins this Sugar Bowl?
The Crimson Tide will trample the Ohio State Buckeyes.
It's like watching John Stockton to Karl Malone. That's a good pick right there. Good pick. Alabama. This isn't that, Cooper.
Okay.
Manning.
Oh, okay.
Chandler got it.
I think Ohio State's going to win by a last-second field goal and win by 3 to go on to the championship. Now on to this game. 2 Heisman quarterbacks in Oregon and the Florida State in the Rose Bowl. Who wins this semifinal game?
Florida State has won 29 games straight, so I'm going to make that 30.
And I'm going to second that and make that 30. Also by a last-second field goal to win by 3.
Well, I'll tell you what. Before we end our show, you know that I love Florida State. And you know that I love Jameis Winston. You know I predicted he's going to throw for more than 450 yards. Okay? So you know I'm going with Florida State on this one, except the Quack Attack! The Ducks are going to win it! Go Ducks!
From our crew at CFCI Game Day, we would like to wish you a Happy New Year. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in Dallas for the national championship between Oregon or Florida State and Alabama or Ohio State. Thank you again.
Awesome.